That's a good question. We actually fell in love with this school because it was French. As an American, both my parents were born out of country, but I was born here. It's geographically isolated, it's culturally isolated, it's a little bit of an egocentric culture of just American, English, American life, American culture, which I love. But there's so much diversity in the world. And for example, in first world countries like Europe, where they're so close together, different languages, different countries, different societies, different way of life, and you can easily drive, 5 hours or take a train and see that. And you can educate your kids like that. We don't have that here. We don't have, an easily accessible, completely different culture, language vibe. So when I walked in here, this is a very unique preschool for Los Angeles, for America in general, because an American preschool is very focused on academics and kind of more rule-oriented, whereas this is much more focused on the international feel. So not just French, but an international feel. There's a lot of German kids here. There's kids from Asia. There's kids. I think there's actually one child from Africa. So you get different feels. You get different looks.
Can I see?
And it's a great education for my kids, because I cannot offer that to them. I don't have access to that. But to offer them an education facility that has that drew me in. America is very academic in school. And in this school, as you can just look around, they focus on gardening, they focus on cooking, they focus on play, they focus on the whole person as opposed to just one small area. And that's what I like. It's a fantastic school. Right, that's actually an excellent question. They say that actually from ages 0 to 5 is the prime time to introduce a second language, or a third or fourth. And it actually, they've done research and they've actually shown that learning a different language helps with not just language and vocabulary and communication, but with math and numbers and science. And it kind of, if you think of your brain like a muscle, learning a different language is simply doing more exercises. You're kind of forcing your brain to get larger and larger. But yeah, they've done plenty of studies where if you introduce them before age 5, it's truly beneficial. And then from 5 to 10, it's beneficial, but it's not as easy to learn it. And then after puberty, if you introduce a second language, it's really difficult. So that's a very good question. So this is preschool, and there is a French school, kindergarten through 8th or something around here, but it's private, which is a lot of money. So because we went to preschool here, that's a great question, it garnered in me an interest in a language for elementary school, kindergarten through 5. So I had 2 choices, Mandarin or German, and we picked the German school. So my older one goes to school at Goethe, which is German, and he loves it. He loves a different language. It's very similar to this field. He was interested in a language. So the German is a very different philosophy than French. It's a little bit of a different feel, but a similar international flair. And my big thing is opening your mind to different cultures and a wider education than just what a traditional American school would give you. And learning French?
Yes.
Why?
Is
it good to learn new languages?
Yeah.
Did you hear Do you hear words differently? Do you like the language of French? You're learning German too, so how does that affect you?
If they say it, I remember.
When you hear it, you remember?
Yeah, and
would it make you want to travel to France and see the French culture in its native country? Wouldn't that be fun?
yeah.
I had no idea about this school until I ran into some mom that was coming here and she said something about it. I had never seen anything. I had never seen anything online. I had never seen anything. And there's a lot of the preschools here that are American have good word of mouth, but they're very aggressive. See, that's the other thing. The school isn't aggressive. If they had a French immersion charter, I would have looked at it. Because coming here made me want to do a language for K through 5. So that changed my path. You know, so French preschools are fantastic, and getting the language charter schools, the information and the opportunities out there is fantastic. I do think a lot of parents would love it, and I do think now the importance of language is being understood more. So I do feel like, especially on the West Side, there's so many educated, kind of dramatic parents that would love a language. I think it would do well.
I think language is very important, of course. So many Americans grow up speaking only English, and I have learned several languages in my life, and I'm grateful to have had those opportunities, and I think it's so important. And of course, my son is 2, and he goes to the little campus at Ecole Clairefontaine, and he can pick up everything right now because he's so young. And so now is a wonderful time for him to learn a new language. And for me to know any other language helps me to have empathy for other people around the world, and to have an increased understanding and ability to communicate with people and hear them tell their stories in their native language, which makes a great difference. It's difficult to talk all the time in a second language. Sometimes it's very nice to just fall into your own language, your native language. And so if I'm able to understand someone's native language, then they can speak more, maybe comfortably sometimes with me, and I can understand them more. And I want my son to have that opportunity as well. And I want him to be a lovely citizen of the world, and certainly not an egocentric American, as so many of us are raised to be. I think that it will help to open his mind and to help his musical abilities and his ability to see a larger picture. And I think that the way that the brain works is really set up beautifully for any language, and the more you know how to do and the more patterns that you can make, the stronger your mind can become, not just socially but intellectually. I think it just makes for a lovely person all around. I think that French is not one of those languages in the U.S. that we learn on the job, so to speak. We're not going to pick it up by osmosis like we can with Spanish. For instance, in Los Angeles in particular, or in most of the U.S., we can learn Spanish pretty easily and should learn it, since so many Americans have Spanish as their first language. I've always wanted him to go to French school from before he was even born. Why that is, there are just so many reasons. I mean, it's a wonderful language. He won't learn it probably just anywhere else. He's not going to happen to learn it.
What next for him after here, for example?
Well, he's at the little campus now, and so then I see him to come to
you
this
have
big
time.
campus.
Yeah.
Yes,
no
and
rush.
It's his first semester at the little campus.
Oh, great.
But I am looking at Crossroads for him to go to next, which is a regular school. It's not language-based particularly, but they offer language. And as far as philosophy goes, it's similar in that intellectual curiosity is honored and people are allowed to experiment with their ideas. There aren't hard and fast rules. There are guidelines and modes of conduct that people want to have, their students follow, but it's not rigid, and that's very important to me. I don't want my son to go to school anywhere where he's told that who he is isn't appropriate. So this is a good place for him, and then that next school looked pretty good too. I don't know about other French schools, but to have all of those things happen in another language is something that I really can't offer him. And that's something that I learned for myself in Arabic, for example, through my work and where I lived. And so I had people living their lives in that language around me and with me, and I lived my life in that language around people. And so the way that I could process information changed, and the way that I could understand things changed. And that's not something that I could offer to my son by simply speaking a language to him, because there's more to it. There's the whole feeling that comes with the language that a non-native speaker can't project in the same kind of way. So it would be great if there were another place for him to go.